Welcome everybody to Tales from the Jar Side, the video series. Not interested or didn't have time to read my newsletter that went out yesterday? That's okay. I'll be happy to read it to you, along with extra commentary. Consider this the director's cut, if you will. My name is Ken Cousin. I run a one-person company called Cousin IT, and here we are. So the title this week is Tales from the Jar Side. It's my birthday. A new Gradle video. New Mockito post, boys behaving badly, and tweets and toots. The subtitle is my wife saying, "Do you want dinner?" And I respond, "Sure, what are my choices?" And she says, "Yes and no." Wait a minute, I need it. There's our rim shot. Okay. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of March 5th through 12th, 2023. This week I did remember to update the dates. I taught my JUnit 5 course and my Mockito course as No Fluff Just Stuff virtual workshops, so that was fun actually. Regular readers of and listeners to, and now even video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter listener or reader or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe on the newsletter, or you can go to the Tales from the Jar Side video channel and subscribe there. First section. Happy birthday. Okay, here we go. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. And many more. At least I hope so. Found this beautiful picture that has, I know it's not as many candles as I really need, but you get the idea. Isn't that a great picture? At least I didn't light them, right? I mean, that would be, and then the fire department be coming to my house and everything, it'd be a real problem. So as it turned out, yesterday, the day the newsletter went out, was the actual day of my birthday, and that's the first time that's lined up since I started the newsletter a little over 4 years ago. So I've got that going for me, which is nice. Caddyshack reference. Also, at my age, I needed a big breath for that song because I need a big breath for most everything. But I digress. Few observations. Of course, at my age, I have an assortment of physical issues, especially given the fact that I lead a largely sedentary lifestyle that mostly consists of staring at computer screens all day. But right now, I'm fine. I mean, don't worry about me. I'm doing great. So that's good. Also, daylight saving, singular, time started yesterday morning. Daylight saving. Isn't that weird that that's singular? But okay. Which means my birthday got shortchanged this year and was only 23 hours long. But I'm viewing that as the loan of an hour of my birthday to a day in the fall when we turn the clocks back again. So on that day, when we turn the clocks back, I plan to celebrate the lost hour. Most likely I'll do so by sleeping, since it'll occur at 2 in the morning, but that's a good way to celebrate my birthday. I'm fine with that. It may also be time at long last to admit that the Red Sox are probably not going to be calling for that power-hitting outfielder in the major leagues that I always wanted to be. Oh well, I'm okay with that. I mean, after all, they trade away Mookie Betts for nothing, and I'm still mad about it. I actually had a rather busy day yesterday. In the morning, my wife and I did some performing. We're both singers at First Church in Marlborough, Connecticut, tiny little town. We normally perform at First Church in Glastonbury, where my wife is a soprano section leader. But this time, our local one happened to invite us, and we got a chance to be there. So we did that. She had a thing in the afternoon, and then in the evening we went out to dinner and had birthday cake and all of that. And I mentioned it was my birthday, but no, they didn't give me a discount. And how typical of somebody my age is that I tried to use my birthday to see if I got a discount. Oh well. For the record, I am 61, and I don't talk about it as being less than that. I'm fine with 61. I earned those years, so I want those, and it's certainly better than the alternative. I also like to believe I'm much younger 61 than many of my contemporaries. The fact that you're listening to this newsletter is a good sign. Let me be at least somewhat serious for a moment. I have worked very hard in my life. There's been a lot of struggles. I know also I have been very privileged. I've had a lot of opportunities that other people would not necessarily have had, but I fought for them when I got them. I grew up with both significant assets and some significant obstacles, not your fault, that I had to overcome, but I have found my way through. Therapy's been very helpful, I have to say. I found my ideal friend, partner, and love of my life at age 27. That's my wife, obviously. I married her when I was 28, and it has been 32 and a half years. It's good when you get married in a year that ends in a 0. Makes it easy to add. So I was married in 1990 in October, so we're not up to October yet, so it's 32 and not yet 33. I changed careers from being a research scientist to being in IT at age 38. I was a Java developer and I was an instructor back then. That happened in 2000. I started my own company on my own at age 43 after spending 5 years in a training company. I went out on my own in 2005. I was mostly an instructor, but I was attending the No Fluff Just Stuff tour conferences for a couple of years when I managed to bug them into giving me a chance as a speaker on the tour. So I joined the tour at age 47 as I was working on my first book, which is Making Java Groovy. That book was published when I was age 50. So I'm now, and by the way, my most recent book, Mockito Made Clear, was published when I was 60. So in 10 years, I managed to publish 6 books, and I'm kind of pleased about that. That feels pretty good. If only I didn't have to compare myself to Venkat Subramaniam all the time. Any rate, moving on. I'm forced to admit I am more successful, productive, and happy than I've ever been in my life. I'm not one of those people who worries that I peaked back in high school and even in college. Things have gotten better for me as I've gotten older, and that's very lucky. That's not necessarily common. So I even have been writing this newsletter, which I really enjoy. That's been a little over four years now. And this year, just to make my life more complicated, I started the YouTube channel as well. And we'll see how that goes. As the poet said, it's been a long and winding road, but on balance, a good one. Of course, that same poet actually told us to listen to what the man said, and without ever telling us what the man actually said. So probably don't want to read too much into that. I'll finish with this. This is a serious note. One unexpected downside to doing well is that it throws into sharper relief the struggles of the people I see around me. I mean, everybody's going through something, but I'm really much more aware of it than I was when I was more overwhelmed with my own difficulties. I guess that's a good thing, but it's tough, and I try to help where I can. I try not to talk about it. I'd rather do these things quietly. That's just my own preference. If you're much more public about your assistance or charity or whatever, then of course that's fine. But all I ask is that if you do encounter someone that needs help and you are in a position to help them, please consider doing so. And if you do, I'll be very happy. You don't have to tell me about it. Again, I do these things quietly. But I like this pay it forward kind of arrangement. I think that works out well for all of us, frankly. If you don't have any particular preference, then the site that I like a lot is RIP Medical Debt. Now, this is really an inherently U.S. thing because the U.S. healthcare system is such a dysfunctional mess at the moment that a lot of people go bankrupt from medical bills. And what RIP Medical Debt is, what they do is they purchase medical debt for literally pennies on the dollar. And therefore, a $100 contribution winds up getting rid of, could be $10,000 worth of medical debt. And of course, these things are life-changing for the people who receive it. And you don't even know who it is necessarily, but you know that it did happen and changed someone's life. So I happen to like that site. Okay, that's enough that I'll say about that. But hey, happy birthday, me. Okay, this section, I have a new video and a new Medium post. Now, I was making Mockito videos to support the Mockito Made Clear book. But this week, I got a comment on one of the Mockito videos, the one on setting up a Mockito project. And someone was saying they tried to do it in Eclipse and ran into some problems. And I had used IntelliJ IDEA on the video. Now, I was an Eclipse user from pretty much when Eclipse was released around 2000, 2001, up through around 2010, at which point I switched over to IntelliJ IDEA. It's around the same time that the Android people switched to Android Studio from the Eclipse IDE, the Android developer tools, if you were an Android long enough to remember that thing. So that kind of clinched it for me. It was time to do that. So, but I'm still familiar with it. It's still basically the same product, just bigger and heftier and all of that. So I made a video that documented something I've been talking about for many years called Importing a Gradle Project into Eclipse. So it shows both the Gradle plugin for Eclipse, which is known as BuildShip. That comes installed normally, but in case you don't have it, I did talk about using that if you do have it. And I also talked about the Eclipse plugin for Gradle, which allows Gradle to generate the .project file, the .settings folder, and everything that Eclipse looks for when it's trying to recognize an existing Eclipse project. So that also helps the import process. Now, I wound up releasing this video at the worst possible time. I mean, it's a work-related video, and I released it at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday. Yeah, that'll go well. By the time I wrote the newsletter, it's Saturday or Sunday. I guess I checked it on Sunday. It only been viewed 21 times. Now it's up to 30, so releasing the newsletter seemed to have helped a little bit. Or maybe it's just the fact that it's Monday now. I'm glad I have it because I do periodically get questions about this, and that way I can refer it to people if they're interested. Next week, I'll get back to Mockito. Now, meanwhile, I also had a blog post come out on the Medium platform as part of the Pragmatic Programmers publication. This is it. It's called I Spy with My Little Mockito. And it talks about the creation of spies in Mockito, which are basically wrappers for existing components. If you're testing a class that has dependencies, but you want to use the real dependencies, you can wrap them in a spy. And what that buys you is the ability to keep track of how many times your test class calls methods in the existing object. Does it call the methods the right number of times with the right arguments in the right order? That's something that is difficult to do with Java, but a spy does it automatically. The only time you run into risks with spies is if you treat them as what they call a partial mock, meaning that you could also override some of the methods in the dependency, and you just have to be very careful that you do that in a way that leaves the underlying object consistent. And there's an example in there of changing the size method on a list to return a number that doesn't correspond to the actual number of elements on the list. And you have to remember that these methods are not all completely independent. There's some underlying state involved. At any rate, that's the article if you're interested, and it's in there. Now, I put the link to my overall Medium page in case you're looking for it. I don't tend to put that in my bio, but here it is. It's medium.com/@KenCousin. My last name spelled Kousen. And it's got all of those stories in there, including many, many of the older ones that eventually will be the subject of videos. In fact, the spying one will be a video too. It'll depend on when I get around to it. Now, I put in a little secondary thing. If you actually go to Pragmatic Programmers, this is pragprog.com, you see my book is here on the front page because it's getting pushed down week by week as new books are released. But it's still on that front page, but there's a link here called Bestsellers. And if I look at the Bestsellers link, you see that they list them all in rows of 3, and it goes 10 rows deep. So there's actually like 30 books on the bestseller list here. And if you saw it as I scrolled by, I got to be a little slower here. There's my green cover for Mockito Made Clear sitting there in the 9th row, position 2, which means this week it's at number 26. Okay, when it first came out, it was at number 5, which I was amazed by. That was really nice, but I shouldn't have counted any chickens then because the next week it dropped to 27, and the week after that it dropped off entirely. But then it reappeared at 28 the week after that, and this week it's at 26. So I'm going to take some credit that between the posts at Medium and these YouTube videos, and me talking about it, of course, maybe that's helping. I have no idea, but it's part of the stories that I tell myself to keep moving forward. I mean, it's not the money, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm not giving up my day job. Okay, so enough about that. Let's move on to the section on unpleasant subjects. So 2 scandals broke this week, one in the world of chess and one by, of course, Elon the stupid himself. Elon the bloody stupid, if I really say it honestly. Now, I tend to talk about chess information from the chess world in this newsletter periodically. It's a way of letting my friends know who are not into that world about this parallel world going on, let them know what's going on there. And this time it was not good. It was a scandal. And what happened is back in February, I think it was around the 15th or so, 2-time U.S. women's champion, woman grandmaster, WGM, Jennifer Shahade, it's pronounced Shahade, tweeted about sexual harassment she experienced several years ago by Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez. Now, she was willing to just let it go as trying to get on with her life, although she had reported it, although not till 2020, as I recall. But she started hearing from other women that were running into problems with Ramirez as well and felt she had to come forward now, even knowing what kind of public harassment that was likely to subject her to. Now, Alejandro Ramirez was the first grandmaster from Central America. He's originally from Costa Rica and was at one time the second youngest grandmaster in the world. He's played for the U.S. since 2011. And I got to say, he's charming and personable on camera. I've never actually met him, but I've watched him do commentary on several broadcasts. He's young and clever and funny. I mean, it seems like a good guy, which, of course, is the problem. Shahade felt obligated to come forward, as I mentioned, because others were saying something. And there's a summary of these subsequent events here. And what I linked to is an article at chess.com, that's Ramirez, that talks about an article that appeared this week in the Wall Street Journal. See, this is what really brought everything to the front. 8 women accused Ramirez of wrongdoing, and there's a lot of detail in here, and it gets pretty ugly and graphic, and you can take a look if you like. I was going to look at the Wall Street Journal article explicitly, but I can't. I don't subscribe, and the Wall Street Journal doesn't let you have anything if you don't subscribe. So I got a couple paragraphs and they said, nope, that's it. That's all you get. So at any rate, if you're interested in the details, they are summarized very nicely in that article. So her announcement encouraged several other women to come forward in addition, and that jarred the U.S. Chess Federation to finally taking action. And I received an email, like everybody else did, all the other members of the USCF, where they clarified their position on the issue. And I summarized their clarification as, yeah, we never heard of the guy. Plus, we never got any complaints until 3 years ago, 2020, basically. And since then, we haven't changed anything. And we even let him coach a women's team because what could go wrong, right? It's not our fault. Please don't sue us. And I linked to the statement if you want to see it, but it was very weaselly. They did, however, relieve him of all duties and responsibilities. And that's kind of what I want to emphasize. While it's clear that a lot of male grandmasters or males in his circle were surprised by this and had no idea, and said they really were not aware of this at all, I actually kind of believe them. If you're not directly involved, then unless a woman tells you about it, how are you going to know? I mean, unless you see it. And Ramirez was very good at hiding his behavior from everybody else. He made sure that the women involved were isolated, that he got them where nobody else was around before he did anything. Now, of course, some of these things were reported, and that's where the real scandal is going to be. Well, not the real scandal, but the other scandal is, what did the people who did know about this do? That'll be the question, like the USCF. But I got to say, it's broken through now. And a lot of grandmasters have been saying publicly, yeah, I read the Wall Street Journal article. He's done. He's completely done. People who'd hired him in the past, many, I even watched a couple of podcasts where some major grandmasters with a lot of influence talked about this, and they've written him off completely. So he's been fired from his positions at U.S. Chess. He was a coach for the, St. Louis University chess team, and that he's been relieved of that too. Regardless of how any legal issues play out, if there are any, his career in the chess world is over. I know that sometimes they're able to do some sort of redemption tour, but signs aren't pointing to yes at this moment. Now, my reaction, of course, is I believed Jennifer immediately. I always believe women when they talk about harassment. My experience from many years of talking to women about these sorts of issues is every woman I've ever met has a story, some story that should count as harassment by any reasonable definition. And therefore, I believe them. I mean, I know it's just awful out there for many of them sooner or later. I've spent most of my career in male-dominated fields, from engineering to IT and chess and, well, several others as well. And I'm not at all surprised that people in a position of power try to take advantage. So I believed her, not to mention the fact that she is about the least drama-related person you could meet. You know, she's not interested in making any dramatic waves at all. She really felt this was a hard thing for her to do. Sometimes, you know, and then of course now we have 10 more women coming out of the woodwork to say, oh, hey, it was happening to me too. And it's like, yeah, that's it. He's done. I can't imagine what he's going to do at this point. Now, of course, the latest news report, and I brought in this post from Lichess on Mastodon that included articles from a St. Louis Post-Dispatch report that said 2 women said they were recently contacted by a private investigator hired by Ramirez, even though one of the women said she never reported her assault to any authority. So only Ramirez could have sent the PI because he's the only other one involved, right? I mean, who else would have known this happened? So, oh my goodness, it's not off to a good start. So as we see with athletes all the time, if you're talented enough and skilled enough, and more importantly, if you make money for somebody, they will often overlook bad behavior. Ramirez is playing for himself, right? And he's good, but he's not that good. You know, he's done, and at least for the foreseeable future. And I hope so. Good riddance. Okay, the other big scandal involved Elon being every bit as stupid as he has ever been about anything in his life. Again. I mean, you think he's set the bar so low and he finds a new low for this stuff. It's just incredible. In this world, he got a tweet. So this all happened in public, and I watched it like everybody else did in real time, seemingly. So the whole fiasco is summarized in this excellent article by John Gruber in Daring Fireball called Phony Stark, which is a great name. Picks on the wrong guy, attempting and, of course, botching an HR exit interview live on Twitter. And here's the article at Daring Fireball. And you could take a look. He took a lot of snippets out of the tweets and out of discussions and everything, on, and it is just horrific. And the tweet came from Halli. All right, I'm going to try to pronounce this, and maybe I get it wrong. If I did, I apologize. Thorleifsson. I mean, he's Icelandic, and I don't know what the right pronunciation would be of his last name. So I'm just going to go with what it looks like and hope that gets close enough. At any rate, his original tweet said, 9 days ago, the access to my work computer was cut, along with about 200 other Twitter employees. However, your head of HR is not able to confirm if I'm an employee or not. You've not answered my emails. Maybe if enough people retweet, you'll answer me here. And if he did, because Elon, rather than doing his job, is spending all his time on Twitter. But his response was horrible. Yeah, who are you and why should I care kind of response. And what have you done lately? And who is the client? And he said, look, that's going to violate confidentiality agreements. Like, go ahead. Like, it's fine. And he mentioned it, and Elon just made fun of the whole thing and laughed it off. He even claimed that Halli claimed a fake disability to keep from coding, yet here he was tweeting up a storm, as Elon said. And Halli didn't respond with the fury that I would have felt, certainly. Instead, he said, look, you brought it up, with that HIPAA violation and the attendant lawsuits immediately going to be pending. But he pointed out he's been struggling with muscular dystrophy for many years. And as a team leader, he was able to help others so that his typing didn't matter so much as he was losing that capability over time. And now he is able to use his phone to tweet occasionally. He just can't do a lot of typing in extended periods. I mean, on and on, all this stuff that he would never have exposed publicly had Elon not deliberately called him out for it. And it all happened in public on Twitter. And during that time, I expect Elon's lawyers were frantically calling, trying to tell him to stop, The best part, of course, is that Halli is a Twitter employee only because his company, which he led and built his huge reputation based on, was purchased by Twitter before Elon got there, and he was placed on a so-called do not fire list because breaking his contract would be so expensive for the company. And here Elon said, yeah, you can't fire somebody who doesn't do any work. I mean, he actually said this, like begging to be sued. Oh my goodness. Halli even has been named at one time Iceland's Person of the Year for all his charitable work there on behalf of the disabled community. Yeah, okay. So finally there was a quote apology by Elon, and I put in the before and after here, but if you can't read it, here's what Elon's tweet said. Of course, he did it in Twitter. I would like to apologize to Halli for my misunderstanding of his situation. It was based on things I was told that were untrue. Really? Like what? Or in some cases, true but not meaningful. Really? And either one of those justifies that he is considering remaining at Twitter. I hope he considers suing him for everything he's got, because, oh my goodness, that non-apology apology again just shows how nothing is ever Elon's fault in Elon's mind. He was misinformed, but this one's really going to cost him. And I hope Halli, I mean, there's some people complaining that Halli was setting him up, and I hope he did, because if he did, it was a masterful job. And there's just no way to predict that Elon would be that stupid publicly. At least I wouldn't have expected it. I mean, as much contempt as I have for the guy now, that dropped the bottom out of the bottom. I just can't believe it. At any rate, Elon demonstrated yet again he's a virulent narcissist who shouldn't be allowed to manage a hot dog stand, much less a multi-billion-dollar company that's on its last legs. There was another excellent article about all this. This was called Elon Musk's Compelling Case for Worst Human of 2023. So there's a link in there if you'd like to see it. And, there's Elon's tweets and Twitter and all that. But there's a whole bunch of stuff here. You're welcome to take a look at it. And you can see, this way you could do it without actually going to visit Twitter. So I can close that too now. So let's come back here. And then this, of course, was a great little comment that somebody tweeted that said, the General Conference on Weights and Measures should introduce a measure of shitty behavior called the Elon. Even a few micro Elons is toxic, which that's clever. All right. I'm sick of boys behaving badly. Let's lighten things up and take a look at the tweets and toots for this week. This was posted on Mastodon. It looks like a New Yorker cartoon. It probably is. I don't know the original source. I'm glad the artist has his name in it. But it was really funny. You see, there's a person in there who has no hair, right? It says, shoot, I know I came in here for a reason, standing between the fire and the fire extinguisher. Wonderful. I really like that. And I've never done that. At least I don't remember ever doing that. There we go. This was a great mashup from sysadmin 1138, whatever that handle means. In Valen's name, what a savings. That's brilliant. I mean, Valen from Babylon 5 and the What a Savings by Grabthar's Hammer in the Galaxy Quest movie. What a wonderful mashup. That's just so great. And I tried to come up with a few of my own. Came up about half a dozen. I didn't really like any of them. The only one I thought was okay was this one, to boldly go to a galaxy far, far away. That's not bad. But all the other ones I came up with felt forced. Didn't really work. If you come up with any, please let me know. Love to hear it. Okay, where do the Romulans fit? I thought this t-shirt was excellent. I saw this also on a tweet somewhere. It said, a Vulcan in the streets, a Klingon in the sheets. That sounds quite promising, doesn't it? Regardless of who the partner is. This one I thought was quite clever. This Mastodon toot that said, who called it writing documentation and not manual labor? Which, hey, yeah, that works for me. That's very good. I like that idea. And finally, this was another image that wound up in a Mastodon post. Says, urgent warning for tomorrow. Aliens are coming to Earth tomorrow. Their mission is to abduct all sexy, good-looking old people. I'm just sharing to say goodbye. I've got a pack. And hey, look, All right, I'm older, but I'm adorable, right? I mean, I knew I wouldn't be able to say that with a straight face. At any rate, if there's no newsletter next week, you'll know why. So thank you very much for listening. This week I am teaching week 1 of my Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course on the O'Reilly Learning Platform. And I'm talking about modern Java, functional programming with streams, lambdas, and method references as an NFJS virtual workshop. I will try to get another video together in the Mockito series, and I will look forward to talking to all of you again next week. Have a good week, everybody.